The descent into the unknown. The emergency alarms blared, filling the small scout ship with a harsh red light. Ethan gripped the controls tightly, his knuckles white as the ship shuddered violently. The Wanderer, his trusted vessel, was not built for atmospheric entry, especially without shields. The planet below, uncharted and unnamed, loomed large through the cockpit window. Its surface was a swirling mix of vibrant colors, emerald jungles, sapphire oceans, and golden deserts. It was beautiful, but Ethan had no time to admire it. "Mayday! Mayday!" Ethan shouted into the comms, his voice strained. "This is Scout Vessel Wanderer. Hull breach detected. Losing altitude rapidly. Requesting immediate assistance." Static was the only reply. He was alone. A brutal landing. The ship plunged through the atmosphere, heat shields failing as flames licked the edges of the hull. Ethan fought to steer the crippled vessel toward a flat area he had glimpsed through the clouds. With a bone-jarring crash, the Wanderer slammed into the ground, skidding across the terrain before coming to a stop. Ethan was thrown against his restraints, his head snapping back. For a moment, everything went black. Awakening in an alien world. Consciousness returned slowly, bringing with it a symphony of pain. Ethan groaned, his body aching and his head throbbing. The smell of burning plastic and ozone filled the air. He unbuckled his restraints and took stock of the situation. The cockpit was a mess, wires sparked, screens were shattered, and debris was scattered everywhere. Miraculously, he seemed to be mostly intact, save for a few bruises and a nasty gash on his forehead. The enchanting jungle. Ethan stumbled out of the wreckage, blinking against the bright sunlight. He found himself in a dense jungle unlike anything he had ever seen. Towering trees with iridescent leaves formed a canopy overhead, casting dappled shadows on the vibrant alien flora. Strange melodic calls echoed through the air, and the ground teemed with bizarre multi-legged creatures. "Well," Ethan muttered to himself, "looks like I'm not in Kansas anymore." Meeting Lyra. Ethan followed a small stream, hoping it would lead him to fresh water. After hours of hacking through dense vegetation, he came to a clearing with a crystal-clear pool fed by a cascading waterfall. As he knelt to drink, a melodic voice stopped him. "You shouldn't drink from there," the voice said, tinged with amusement. "Not unless you want to spend the next few hours hallucinating." Ethan whirled around, his hand instinctively reaching for his sidearm. Standing at the edge of the clearing was a figure that made his breath catch in his throat. She was alien, undoubtedly, but breathtakingly beautiful. Her skin shimmered with a soft bioluminescent glow, a pale lavender color that seemed to pulse with light. Her hair was long and flowing, the color of spun silver, and her eyes were large and almond-shaped, a deep emerald green. She wore clothing woven from leaves and vines, which accentuated her lithe, graceful figure. A new alliance. "Who are you?" Ethan asked, his voice wary. "I am Lyra," she replied, her voice like the tinkling of bells. "And you are lost." Ethan lowered his hand, realizing his weapon was probably useless against this ethereal being. "I'm Ethan. My ship crashed. I need to find a way to contact my people." Lyra tilted her head, her expression curious. "Your people? There is nothing beyond Eden. This planet is all there is." Ethan frowned. According to the star charts, this region of space was supposed to be empty. How could a planet like this exist hidden from the rest of the galaxy? "The journey begins." Lyra agreed to help Ethan, but she warned him of the dangers that lurked in Eden. As they set off into the jungle, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of an adventure far beyond his wildest dreams. The jungle's hidden dangers. Ethan followed Lyra through the dense jungle, his senses on high alert. The air was thick with humidity, and the heat was oppressive. Strange sounds echoed around them, chirps, rustles, and distant roars that sent shivers down his spine. Lyra moved with an effortless grace, her bioluminescent skin casting an otherworldly glow in the dappled light. She seemed to know every inch of the jungle, avoiding hidden pitfalls and venomous plants with ease. Ethan, however, struggled to keep up. His boots sank into the soft, mossy ground, and he had to constantly swat away buzzing insects that seemed intent on making him their next meal. "How do you know so much about this place?" he asked, panting as he climbed over a fallen tree. Lyra glanced back at him, her emerald eyes glinting with amusement. "Eden is my home. I have lived here for as long as I can remember. It is my duty to protect it." The ancient ruins. After hours of trekking, they reached a clearing unlike any Ethan had seen before. In the center stood a massive stone structure, half buried in the jungle. Its surface was covered in intricate carvings that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. The air around it felt charged, as if the very ground hummed with energy. "What is this place?" Ethan asked, his voice filled with awe. Lyra's expression grew solemn. "This is one of the ancient sites. They are scattered throughout Eden, remnants of a civilization that existed long before I came here." Ethan stepped closer, running his fingers over the carvings. They depicted strange beings with elongated limbs and glowing eyes, surrounded by symbols he couldn't decipher. "What happened to them?" Lyra hesitated, her gaze distant. "They vanished. No one knows why. Some say they ascended to a higher plane of existence. Others believe they destroyed themselves with their own technology." The arrival of the Krell. Before Ethan could ask more, a deafening roar echoed through the jungle. The ground trembled, and the trees swayed violently. Lyra's eyes widened with alarm. "The Krell," she whispered. "They have come." Ethan instinctively reached for his sidearm. "Who are the Krell?" "Scavengers," Lyra replied, her voice tense. "They are drawn to Eden by the scent of power. They will stop at nothing to claim the artifacts left behind by the ancients." As if on cue, a group of grotesque creatures burst into the clearing. They were tall and muscular, with thick chitinous armor and razor-sharp claws. Their eyes glowed with a malevolent red light, and their mouths were filled with rows of jagged teeth. "The battle begins." Ethan raised his sidearm, firing a burst of energy at the lead Krell. The blast struck the creature in the chest, sending it staggering backward, but it quickly recovered, its armor only slightly scorched. "Energy weapons are useless against them," Lyra shouted. "We need to use physical attacks." Ethan cursed under his breath. He tossed aside his sidearm and grabbed a sharpened stick from the ground. "All right," he said, his voice grim. "Let's do this the old-fashioned way." The Krell charged, their claws slashing through the air. Ethan dodged and weaved, using his agility and training to avoid their attacks. He thrust his makeshift spear at one of the Krell, striking it in the leg. The creature roared in pain but didn't fall. Lyra joined the fray, her movements fluid and graceful. She hurled rocks at the Krell, striking them in the head and face. The rocks seemed to have little effect, but they served to distract the creatures, giving Ethan an opening to attack. A desperate stand. Together, Ethan and Lyra fought bravely, but they were outnumbered and outmatched. The Krell were relentless, their attacks growing more ferocious with each passing moment. Ethan felt a sharp pain in his side as one of the Krell's claws grazed his skin. He stumbled backward, his vision blurring. Just when he thought all hope was lost, Lyra unleashed her power. Her bioluminescent skin began to glow brighter, emitting a blinding light. The Krell recoiled, their eyes shielded against the intense glare. "Now, Ethan!" Lyra shouted. "While they are blinded." Ethan seized the opportunity, charging forward with renewed energy. He plunged his spear into the chest of one of the Krell, piercing its heart. The creature let out a final guttural roar before collapsing to the ground. The remaining Krell, still disoriented by Lyra's light, hesitated for a moment. Ethan and Lyra pressed their advantage, attacking with a ferocity they didn't know they possessed. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the last of the Krell fell. A moment of respite. Ethan and Lyra stood panting, their bodies bruised and battered but alive. "We did it," Ethan gasped, collapsing against a tree. Lyra nodded, her eyes filled with relief. "Yes, but they will be back. The Krell are persistent. They will not give up so easily." Ethan looked at her, his expression grim. "Then we need to find a way to stop them once and for all." Lyra hesitated. "There is a way," she said softly. "But it is dangerous. It would require us to enter the heart of Eden, to confront the source of its power." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "The power the Krell are after?" Lyra nodded. "Yes. But it is also the only way to protect Eden, to keep it safe from those who would exploit it." The decision. Ethan considered for a moment. He knew it was a risky proposition, but he also knew they had no other choice. "All right," he said, his voice filled with determination. "Let's do it. Let's go to the heart of Eden." Lyra's eyes softened, and she placed a hand on his arm. "Thank you, Ethan. For helping me protect Eden." Ethan smiled weakly. "Hey, what are friends for?" As they prepared to continue their journey, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that they were stepping into something far bigger than either of them could imagine. The secrets of the ancients, the power of Eden, and the relentless Krell, all of it was connected. And he was about to find out just how deep the rabbit hole went. The journey to the core. Ethan and Lyra set off deeper into the jungle, their destination clear, the heart of Eden. The air grew thicker, the vegetation denser, and the sounds of the jungle more ominous. Strange creatures watched them from the shadows, their eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that they were being followed, but every time he turned to look, there was nothing there. Lyra led the way, her bioluminescent skin casting a soft glow that illuminated their path. She moved with purpose, her steps sure and confident. Ethan, however, struggled to keep up. His side ached where the Krell had grazed him, and his muscles burned from the constant exertion. "How much farther?" he asked, wiping sweat from his brow. Lyra glanced back at him, her emerald eyes filled with determination. "Not far. But the closer we get to the heart, the more dangerous it becomes. The creatures here are unlike anything you've seen before." The Guardian's warning. As they pressed on, the jungle began to change. The trees grew taller, their trunks twisted and gnarled, and the air became charged with energy. Strange plants with glowing flowers lined the path, their petals pulsing with light. Ethan felt a strange pull, as if the very ground beneath his feet was alive. Suddenly, Lyra stopped, her hand shooting out to stop Ethan. "Wait," she whispered. "Do you feel that?" Ethan frowned. "Feel what?" Before Lyra could answer, the ground beneath them trembled. A low, rumbling growl echoed through the jungle, and the trees ahead began to sway violently. Ethan's heart raced as a massive creature emerged from the shadows. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. Towering over them, its body was covered in thick, armored plates, and its eyes glowed with a malevolent red light. Its mouth was filled with rows of jagged teeth, and its claws were as long as Ethan's arm. The Guardian of the Heart. Lyra stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "We mean no harm. We seek only to protect Eden." The creature let out a deafening roar, its breath hot and foul. It lunged at them, its claws slashing through the air. Ethan and Lyra dove out of the way, narrowly avoiding the attack. "We need to get past it," Ethan shouted, his voice filled with urgency. Lyra nodded, her eyes glowing brighter. "Stay close to me." She raised her hands, and a blinding light erupted from her skin. The creature recoiled, its eyes shielded against the intense glare. Ethan seized the opportunity, grabbing a fallen branch and charging at the creature. He swung the branch with all his might, striking it in the side. The creature roared in pain, but it didn't fall. A desperate fight. The battle was fierce. The creature's strength and size made it a formidable opponent, but Ethan and Lyra fought with everything they had. Lyra used her light to disorient the creature, while Ethan attacked with whatever he could find, rocks, branches, even his fists. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the creature let out a final, guttural roar and collapsed to the ground. Ethan and Lyra stood panting, their bodies bruised and battered but alive. "We did it," Ethan gasped, collapsing against a tree. Lyra nodded, her eyes filled with relief. "Yes, but we must hurry. The heart is close. The heart of Eden." They pressed on, the jungle growing darker and more oppressive with each step. Finally, they reached a massive cavern, its entrance hidden by thick vines. The air inside was cool and damp, and the walls were covered in glowing crystals that pulsed with light. In the center of the cavern stood a massive crystal, its surface shimmering with an otherworldly glow. Ethan felt a strange pull, as if the crystal was calling to him. "This is it," Lyra said, her voice filled with awe. "The heart of Eden." Ethan stepped closer, his eyes wide with wonder. "It's beautiful." Lyra nodded. "It is the source of Eden's power. The ancients used it to create this world, to shape it into what it is today. But it is also dangerous. If the Krell were to claim it, they could use it to destroy everything." The final challenge. As they approached the crystal, the ground beneath them began to tremble. The air grew thick with energy, and the crystals on the walls began to glow brighter. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, a tall, imposing figure with glowing eyes and a body covered in armor. "Who dares to enter the heart of Eden?" the figure boomed, its voice echoing through the cavern. Lyra stepped forward, her head held high. "I am Lyra, guardian of Eden. I seek to protect the heart from those who would misuse it." The figure studied her for a moment, its glowing eyes piercing. "And what of the outsider?" Ethan stepped forward, his voice steady. "I'm Ethan. I'm here to help Lyra protect Eden." The figure nodded. "Very well. But know this, the heart of Eden is not easily claimed. Only those who are worthy may wield its power. The test of worth." The figure raised its hand, and the cavern was filled with a blinding light. Ethan felt a strange sensation, as if his very soul was being pulled from his body. He closed his eyes, focusing on the image of Lyra and the promise he had made to protect Eden. When the light faded, the figure was gone, and the cavern was silent. Ethan and Lyra stood alone, the heart of Eden glowing softly before them. "We did it," Ethan said, his voice filled with awe. Lyra nodded, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Yes, but our journey is not over. The Krell will not stop until they claim the heart. We must be ready." Ethan smiled weakly. "Hey, what are friends for?" As they prepared to leave the cavern, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that they were stepping into something far bigger than either of them could imagine. The secrets of the ancients, the power of Eden, and the relentless Krell, all of it was connected. And he was about to find out just how deep the rabbit hole went. The weight of responsibility. Ethan and Lyra emerged from the cavern, the heart of Eden's glow still lingering in their minds. The jungle around them felt different now, charged with an energy that seemed to pulse in sync with their footsteps. The weight of what they had just encountered settled heavily on Ethan's shoulders. He glanced at Lyra, her bioluminescent skin flickering faintly as she walked beside him. "So, what now?" Ethan asked, breaking the silence. "We've seen the heart, but how do we stop the Krell from getting to it?" Lyra's expression grew somber. "The heart is protected by ancient safeguards, but the Krell are relentless. They will find a way to bypass them if we don't act." There's only one way to ensure Eden's safety. Ethan frowned. And what's that? Lyra stopped walking and turned to face him, her emerald eyes filled with a mixture of determination and sorrow. I must merge with the heart. It's the only way to fully awaken its power and seal it away from the Krell. A heartbreaking revelation. Ethan's heart sank. Merge with it? What does that even mean? Lyra took a deep breath. The heart of Eden is not just a source of power, it's alive. It's connected to everything on this planet, including me. By merging with it, I can become its guardian in the truest sense. But it will cost me my physical form. I'll become one with Eden, forever bound to its essence. Ethan shook his head, his voice rising. No. There has to be another way. You can't just disappear like that. What about Eden? What about us? Lyra placed a hand on his arm, her touch warm and reassuring. Ethan, this is my purpose. I was created to protect Eden, and this is the ultimate sacrifice I must make. But I need your help to do it. The plan. Ethan clenched his fists, his mind racing. He didn't want to lose Lyra, but he also knew they couldn't let the Krell claim the heart. What do you need me to do? Lyra's eyes softened. I need you to take me back to the heart. Once we're there, I'll begin the merging process. But the Krell will come, they'll sense the shift in energy. You'll have to hold them off while I complete the ritual. Ethan nodded, his resolve hardening. I'll do whatever it takes. Returning to the cavern. They retraced their steps through the jungle, the path now eerily silent. The usual sounds of the jungle, the chirps, rustles, and distant roars, were gone, replaced by an oppressive stillness. It was as if the planet itself was holding its breath, waiting for what was to come. When they reached the cavern, the heart of Eden pulsed brighter than before, its light casting long shadows on the walls. Lyra approached it slowly, her hand outstretched. The crystal's glow intensified as she drew closer, as if recognizing her presence. Ethan watched from a distance, his heart heavy. He wanted to stop her, to find another way, but he knew this was the only option. The ritual begins. Lyra turned to him one last time, her eyes filled with gratitude. Thank you, Ethan. For everything. Before he could respond, she stepped into the heart's light. Her body began to dissolve, her form breaking apart into shimmering particles that merged with the crystal. The cavern filled with a blinding light, and Ethan shielded his eyes as the ground trembled beneath his feet. When the light faded, Lyra was gone. The heart of Eden glowed brighter than ever, its energy radiating through the cavern. Ethan felt a pang of loss, but he also sensed a new presence, a warmth that seemed to surround him, as if Lyra was still there, watching over him. The Krell arrive. The moment of peace was short-lived. A deafening roar echoed through the cavern, and the ground shook violently. Ethan turned to see the Krell pouring into the cavern, their eyes glowing with a malevolent red light. They had come for the heart, and they weren't going to stop. Ethan grabbed a sharpened stick from the ground, his mind racing. He was outnumbered and outmatched, but he couldn't let them reach the heart. Not after everything Lyra had sacrificed. A desperate stand. The Krell charged, their claws slashing through the air. Ethan fought with everything he had, using the cavern's terrain to his advantage. He ducked behind rocks, hurled stones at the Krell, and struck with his makeshift spear whenever he got the chance. But the Krell were relentless. They kept coming, their numbers seemingly endless. Ethan's strength was fading, his body battered and bruised. Just as he thought he couldn't hold out any longer, the cavern filled with a blinding light. Lyra's final gift. The light was warm and soothing, and it seemed to push the Krell back. Ethan looked up to see the heart of Eden glowing brighter than ever, its light forming a protective barrier around him. The Krell recoiled, their claws unable to penetrate the barrier. Ethan felt a surge of energy, as if the heart was lending him its strength. He stood tall, his resolve renewed. "You're not getting past me," he growled, his voice filled with determination. The Krell hesitated, their glowing eyes filled with confusion. For the first time, they seemed unsure. The turning point. Ethan seized the opportunity, charging at the Krell with a newfound ferocity. He struck with precision, his attacks fueled by the heart's energy. One by one, the Krell fell, their bodies dissolving into ash as the light consumed them. Finally, the last of the Krell collapsed, and the cavern fell silent. Ethan stood panting, his body trembling with exhaustion. The heart's light dimmed, its energy spent. A new beginning. Ethan approached the heart, his heart heavy with loss but also filled with hope. Lyra's sacrifice had saved Eden, and he knew her spirit would live on in the planet itself. As he turned to leave the cavern, he felt a gentle warmth on his skin, as if Lyra was still with him. He smiled faintly, knowing that their journey wasn't over. "I'll protect Eden," he whispered. "For you."